In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun about all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America. Welcome to a special edition of the Corporate Couch. These episodes will be more of a love seat that focuses on one topic and will run 15 to 30 minutes. For each special edition episode, you will hear from one or more outstanding leaders sharing their expertise on the most important challenges in corporate America today. Mark, welcome to the Corporate Couch special edition today.
Hey, always great to be here with you, Jeff. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, you're like in the two-timer club now, the Corporate Couch two-timer club. You've appeared on, well, actually, technically 3 episodes because you were part of 10 executives, and I did the Culture special edition. That was the first one ever.
I remember.
So, yeah, so welcome to the two-timer club.
Well, again, glad to be back with you always.
It's going to be like the SNL. You get a jacket after 5 or more, when you host SNL. So nice. It's all good. Excited to talk to you. The first time we chatted was your career journey, but we talked a lot about your first book that came out, the Purposeful Growth Revolution. So now your second book is, we're recording here in early October 2025. So your second book's about a month, give or take, away. So talk about love at work and what made you write the second one.
I never sought to be an author in the first place. And so the first book was based on an epiphany that hit me several years ago that I kind of followed, and turned out, started as a kind of a presentation, kind of a little passion project. And then people said, hey, maybe that could be a book. I'm like, I'm not a writer. And I did. And I followed it, and it took about 8 or 9 years, give or take, to finish. And that was going to be my magnum opus. This was my kind of pay it backward moment where I was going to try to leverage all of my experiences throughout my career, observations of those whom I admire, and curate kind of a collection of research and subject matter expertise that can go deeper than I could ever go. And that was going to be my kind of one shot, right? One and done. And then I got 4 months after I released it a few years ago, I was writing my LinkedIn newsletter, and it was in February, and I thought, well, I want it to be kind of relevant to the season and Valentine's Day, the season of love. So I kind of wrote down on a piece of paper, love, and I received another epiphany. In that moment, I saw L stands for listen, O stands for observe, V stands for value, and E stands for empower. And I got to thinking, those are just 4 fundamental human needs we all share, but often we find them wanting in the workplace. And so I kind of started sketching out a thought about this idea of bringing love into the workplace, not the kind of love that's going to get you a quick call from HR and escorted out of the building by security, but really leveraging those 4 human needs to create a sequel from the first book, The Purposeful Growth Revolution, which is 4 ways to grow from leader to legacy builder. And I thought that was probably 10 miles wide and 20 feet deep. And this one now is designed to go straight after the manager that wants to learn how to be a leader, and a leader that wants to lead so well they become a legacy builder. And not to forget the teammate who's impacted by all of this. So I kind of got to building out this idea of love, and I'm always a fan of acronyms, but in this case, I wanted to build it out in a way that was really relevant and practical and applicable. So listen, how? Well, listen graciously. Why? To build trust with your team. So there's the what, the how, and the why for each one. Observe how. In this situation, I said generously. And that's to invest in your teammate. And then value gratefully. And that means to appreciate your teammate. And then empower generatively, which means to help your teammate grow and fulfill their true growth potential. And I went back to this 4-circle Venn diagram model that I used throughout the first book and said it's still applicable. These are not linear. These are very much integrated and aligned, still in the center with purposeful growth. We all want to grow, right, in some way, shape, or form, but we're at our best when we grow on purpose. And so that became kind of this idea that I threw out there in a LinkedIn newsletter and got a ton of engagement. And so I kind of put it aside and still was promoting my first book. And then a year later, it's February again, and I had received all this new research that further supported this concept. And so I wrote it again with this new research and doubled down on this idea and got even more engagement. So I knew I was on to something. Later that year, now about a year ago, I decided I'm going to do it. I'm going to turn this into a book. And so at the turn of this year, I boldly declared that 2025 was going to be the year of love. And so this has been a journey in the last year. What took me 8 or so years, the first book, this one was pretty intense in a year, but it is something that I think is very timely and very relevant. And people may go, Mark, you declared 2025 the year of love. Have you seen what's going on in the world? Our geopolitical divisions, our ideological divisions, our generational divisions, division. I said, yeah, love, really. Because the only thing I think that's going to bring us back together is love. And so we got to start where we work and build out from there.
I love the love acronym. And I know that in your first book, you talked about, your belief in the higher power of fours, and obviously the love acronym is a power four. But why you believe so strongly in that?
I used to, Jeff, manage with the rule of threes. And, I believed in the idea that if you focus on 3 things, then you're going to, give your team something to really, focus on, and they'll do a better job, and they'll go deeper, and you'll get better results. And in the first book, if you recall, my mantra was leadership, engagement, and accountability. And I used that in all of my emails and personal conversations, and even back in the day, we had group voicemails, right? But I'd use it for reward and recognition. I'd say, Jeff's doing a wonderful job leading his team. Look at these wonderful results. Or he's engaging his team on a deeper level, and look what they're accomplishing. And he's holding his team accountable for results, and look what they're accomplishing. But as you recall in the first book, that was not enough. The company that I was with decided to sell us, and the new company decided not to keep me or my team. And when I went home that next day, I wrote down leadership, engagement, accountability. What went wrong? And I realized what was missing was fulfillment. We weren't fulfilled. We all had this dream of this career-defining moment of turning this brand around and reaping the fruit of the hard labor that we put in, only to have it taken from us. And I wrote that down, and that's how I got the LEAF model. Fulfillment was the missing aspect. And I then kind of started sketching, and I said, this isn't linear, though. And that's where I got the 4-circle Venn diagram. And that has served as a model for not only the first book, for this second book. And I got to thinking, well, why didn't the rule of threes work? And I then started digging into it, and I said, well, look at all the things that are in fours. There are 4 seasons, not 3. There are 4 directions, not 3. There are 4 chambers to the human heart, not 3. There are 4 elements to the atom, the source of life, not 3. And I could go on and on with this foreplay, but you get the idea. So I started seeing things through a different lens. Instead of looking at things in threes, I said, maybe there's a missing component. So, for example, I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek and the whole Start With Why movement. He states very clearly and poignantly that people want to know why you do what you do before they care what you do or how you do it or even what you do. I thought that was great until I looked at it and said, wait a minute. As someone in marketing and sales, we're always taught to start with who. And then I kind of built that out and said, well, who you serve is more powerful than your why. And there are four realms of service. There's yourself, personal, there's relational, those you love and those who love you. There's professional, who you serve at work, and then there's spiritual. And I thought, well, that's really important to look at things kind of like a prism, tilted a little differently. You'll see the different light refractions that will create a whole new pattern or a whole new design that you might not have seen before. And so the love model is very much the same. It's four letters. There are four components to listening and observing and valuing and empowering. And it all builds together in a way that I think, again, is very timely, very relevant, and really important, Jeff, very applicable. You don't need an MBA to build out your skills within the love model. You just have to be human. And that's kind of my goal, is I want to put the human back in human resources. And I say to do so, all we need is love.
Mark, congratulations. I think you're the first guest that used the word foreplay on my podcast, so thank you for that.
I try to be provocative a little bit, Jeff. As you can tell, the title of the book's called Love at Work, after all, right?
There you go. There you go. Well, you mentioned it, and I, even when we first met, I think you said it, putting the human back in human resources. And I just love that line. It's so good. But why do you think it's probably even more relevant and important today versus even when you wrote your first book?
I'm glad you picked up on that, because I think trends were moving in this direction. I think COVID served as a bit of a microwave that just heated everything up and probably advanced the direction. Because think about back before COVID, we all have heard of big data and machine learning and AI. It's been on the horizon for years, but it wasn't until a couple years ago, really, that it started to become a thing. And it now has snowballed into all anyone in the C-suite can talk about right now, is how do we leverage AI to become more productive, efficient, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's impacting people's jobs, right? Some for the better, right? And if you can use AI techniques to enhance your productivity and do a better job, then that's great, and you should. But we're also seeing now middle managers getting fired. We're seeing a flattening of the organization. We're also starting to see it be more difficult for new people to get into the workplace, because a lot of those AI benefits are taking away what a lot of junior people would be doing. So there's a human impact to technology, but also DEI is in the news, right? And we're hearing, about, it's just a bunch of woke this and that, and it's not. It is not about creating an even playing field for quotas. And you and I had this conversation at coffee the other day. It is not at all about that. It's leveraging the power of diversity, equity and inclusion, but most importantly, emphasizing belonging. And that's why the subtitle of this book is about creating communities of purpose and belonging for revolutionary growth in this new world of work. If you think about belonging, and that's why I believe words matter. We hear words thrown out there and we just take them oftentimes at face value, like culture. That's not a bad word, but when you think about it, a culture may just be a place you feel merely a part of. Not bad, but a community is a place you feel you belong in. And notice I emphasize the word feel in both cases, because again, at the end of the day, we're humans. And it was the great American poet laureate Maya Angelou who has a wonderful quote that I love, and that is, I've learned that people will forget what you've said, people will forget what you've done, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And you think about your experiences in your career, right? When you were in an organization where you felt like you truly belonged, where you could contribute and you didn't have to worry about psychological safety, and if I say this, is it going to get boomerang back and somehow be a negative for me, or do I have the freedom to riff on an idea that may not be a great idea, but it may cause a catalytic event, and someone says, well, what if we did it this way? And all of a sudden now, instead of getting groupthink, you get the true power of diversity. And those are kind of the things where I think by putting the human back in human resources, we're able to step back and really, think about the golden rule, right? It's treat others the way you'd want to be treated. But in my hospitality background, I believe in the platinum rule and treat others the way they want to be treated. And that's where you need a deeper sense of empathy, of listening, and really making sure that you treat people as whole people, not just as workers or employee ID numbers to accomplish an end to make you as a leader look good. But a true servant leader is trying to get the whole team to understand, assess their gifts and piece them together in a way they feel they belong. They know their role, right? And they're valued. And then they're empowered to grow into their full potential. And if you're able to do that, who'd want to quietly quit that? Who'd want to leave that environment? You'd want to stay, right? And you'd want to feel, again, like you're a valuable contributor to the team.
I know you dedicated a whole chapter on words, words matter, and I'm a total believer in that. It's almost like, one of the greatest college basketball coaches in history, John Wooden, like the first practice, it was how to tie their shoes and put on their socks, because that eliminated blisters. So it was kind of the small things. And I'm a true proponent of words matter, but where were you when, you made a difference? And you talked about workers and all the different names. I remember coming up and, we're kind of in the same age demographic, and like you were called subordinates.
Yeah.
like what? I mean, think about that.
And you work for a superior.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, those of us.
You're superior. Yeah, you're superior. So
yeah, exactly. And so those of us of a certain age, that's what I consider the command and control management style that no longer serves us. The younger people today don't want to be managed and required. They want to be led and inspired. And they now have more choices than we did, right? We suffered through that as just that's the way things are, right? And so I look at words such as an employee, and I think, well, that may just be someone employed, paid to do a job, versus I used to like the word team member because I thought of it as being a member of a team. And then as I thought about it deeper, I like the word teammate even more, because a team member may just play their role and go home. A teammate wants to make others better. As you know, we live here in Kansas City, and we've got one of the best tight ends in history, Travis Kelce. He's a megastar in and of himself, right? But he goes into the tight end room and the receiver room, and he's giving tips to everybody to try to elevate their play. He's created Tight End University, where he's trying to help other tight ends on other teams get better. That's what a teammate does, is they lift everybody up, not just worrying about their own role. They try to do something for the greater good of the team. And so I believe teammate is the best way to look at someone. And, we talk about bosses, and it gets thrown around. And I then took the time to look up the etymology of the word boss. It comes from the Danish slave trade. And it was seen as BAAS, this is in the book. And I got to thinking, well, yeah, I mean, you hear about a slave boss or whatever. And now all of a sudden we're using that and just throwing it out in vernacular today. And so I think, and managers, great, we need managers, but aren't we really searching for leaders? Leaders are the ones that can make change, right? And then if you get to be a leader who can positively impact someone else when it's their turn to lead, and that's what it means to be a legacy builder. So those are just some words, and from your multiple career endeavors, but I know in sales, I hate the word selling. I prefer the word serving, right? If you're serving someone, they're going to buy from you, but you're going to do it, and it still works within the love model by listening to them, observing what they need, and hearing their issues, and valuing them as more than just an entry into your sales pipeline, but as a human being who has a family maybe and has things that are on their mind that maybe you can help solve, and then empowering them to be their very best. And when you do that, the love model works in sales, right? Because it's a service model. Love is about serving. I believe it's faith in action, but I don't want to go too deep into that. But it is about taking action. And so while love is a feeling, it doesn't become actualized until it turns into an action. And I think those are kind of the words that drive me, and there's more, and it comes from my journalism background probably and my marketing and advertising background. But
Yeah.
I just hate looking at things on the surface and just taking them face value without questioning a little bit and maybe seeing something a little bit differently that can advance the conversation in a positive way.
Yeah, I'd love to go back to the command and control. So are you a little bit surprised? So, to me, the command and control, I'll say management style because it's not leadership style, kind of grew from the military as well as, we came up in the Industrial Revolution, basically, supervisors running plants and plant people that probably didn't have the education they had. But are you, because what I'm shocked at is that it seems to be still around, even with people that are leaders at younger ages, like 30 or late 20s or early 30s, like they still have sometimes that mentality, which is shocking to me. But I'd love your take on it.
Yeah, I think it's been a management paradigm for years, and you're right. And I did research, and it's all in the book about how the GIs came back from World War II and they got into business. Well, in the Army, it's all about salute and execute, right? You do what you're told to do by your commanding officer, right? That's why they're called a commanding officer, right? And that's how, lives are saved and wars are won, right? And in the workplace, it worked for a long time because people just accept status quo often. And we look at org charts with boxes, right, of people and names and titles, and where do we fit in this boxed org chart kind of thing. But we accepted it because that's just the way it was. And if you recall, there have been, wonderful leaders of companies who've written books on subjects, right, like Jack Welch and Lee Iacocca back in the 80s, and Steve Jobs, and we can think about all these people that were visionary leaders, or they thought they were, but if you ask people that worked for them, they'd say that person was a horse's ass. I hated working there, but they got results, right? Today, again, younger generations, they don't want that, and they're willing to opt out, and they have other choices that we didn't have, right? And so I think that generationally it was moving away from that. But the reason it's still around is because those in power love them some power, and they don't want to give it up, and they don't necessarily want to learn something new. And maybe they've gotten a little stale, and maybe they see a retirement on the horizon, and they're not going to take time to change now. And I think that's really why it's so important. This book is so timely and relevant, because there will be people that I will never reach with this message. And they'll just say that's a bunch of weak, woke hogwash. And there'll be others that are like, hallelujah, someone's listening. We need to change this paradigm from, this tired old command and control management paradigm that no longer serves us into a more purposeful, relational, and humanistic leadership approach. And really important, Jeff, for the benefit of all stakeholders. Yes, our teammates, but also our customers, clients, or guests, right? And also our business partners, anybody in our business ecosystem. And as important, also our communities. I believe very strongly that businesses have the ability to get after some of the ills that is plaguing our world currently, and governments haven't proven effective of getting after them, and religious organizations and nonprofits can only do so much, but businesses actually have the scale, the resources to be able to make change. And we're seeing it with wonderful companies, a great example like Patagonia and Canva and others that are doing good in the world, and in doing so, they're doing well financially. People want to work for companies that make them feel like their work is purposeful. They want to work harder for them, and they want to do a better job of taking care of their guests and their customers and their clients, right? And then if you do that, your business partners, anybody in your ecosystem, it doesn't mean shareholders, could be, but it could be your supplier partners, your distributors, your warehouses, your ad agency, PR agency partners, anybody that's going to help deliver your brand promise that then has a wonderful downstream benefit to the communities where we live, work, and play. And I think that's the part that senior leaders are missing, is that connection. They're seeing the bottom line's the bottom line. Well, yeah and no. There's a different way to get there. So Raj Sisodia, who was co-founder of Conscious Capitalism, wrote a book called Firms of Endearment several years ago, looking at companies who had greater stock performances based on their more cause orientation and more conscious leadership orientation than not only the S&P 500, but the good to great companies that we all read about years ago, right? There's also now an ETF fund called HAPI, I think it's HAPI, that looks at companies that are conscious and it ranks them, and they're also well above the S&P 500 and the good to great companies, et cetera, et cetera. So what I want to implore senior leaders is to understand there's a different way to get where you want to go, but that can benefit more people and actually get you even greater results if you do it the right way, in a purposeful way, in a way that demonstrates love at work.
I have not finished that advanced copy you gave me, but I'm excited to finish it. I mean, I just love your ideas that try to transform, managers into leaders, into this, legacy builders. It has great research in it. I love that you use your personal examples and you have fantastic quotes. So excited for your book, Love at Work, to come out. Mark, thanks for being on the Corporate Couch again.
Hey, my pleasure, Jeff. I appreciate you having me back on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to this special edition of the Corporate Couch. If you enjoyed the episode, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me weekly where I interview great leaders that share their career journey and their leadership wisdom.